Here is an example, one of the best known and very early examples of the visualization of big data for the purposes of health monitoring. This gentleman was tasked by part of the City of London with understanding why people were dying in a particular district of London. He mapped the cases of cholera which happened in that district of London, drew it on a map and came to the conclusion that it all started from a pump, a water pump, in that particular district of London. So he told, he reported back to the council the way to cure the cholera epidemic in London is to take the handle off the pump so people couldn't use it anymore. It turned out later that the well which fed the pump was actually beside an old cesspit where an old toilet, and somebody had thrown an infected baby's nappy into it. The cesspit had leaked, had contaminated the water source, and so was killing people all around the pump. Very simple. A larger example from the end of the 19th century is documented by one of my favourite historians. Hamburg chose the wrong water filtration system. The city council couldn't agree on upgrading their water filtration system, so when cholera arrived with immigrants from Russia, it spread all through the poor districts and contaminated the water systems, and people were dying in droves in the streets. All this, the government in Berlin eventually sent somebody over, and he identified the problem as being just the same as Snow's diagnosis. So that is about the use of big data in cities for health management. The modern hazards you get in cities. This is a picture of the dead after the Bhopal disaster. Does anybody know where Bhopal is and what happened? Could you tell me?
Yeah, there was a gas infection and all the people there. I don't remember if it's in Russia or India.
India.
Yeah.
There was 20,000 people were killed or injured because there was some corrosion of the manufacturing plant, which had been located with a shanty town around it. They had a leak in the middle of the night and 2,000 people died. Now that is a city planning issue. Aberfan. Anybody know about Aberfan?
My parents, they occurred on my parents' wedding anniversary.
All right then. Well, you remember the date. The coal mines used to use, they made, when they had extracted the coal from the mines, they made a big hill of the leftovers from mining the coal. And they got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And when it rained, it stopped being a pile of rock and it became a liquid. And none of the engineers took notice of the danger of this until one morning at about 9:30, just after school had started, you had a couple of 100,000 tons of rock and water went whistling down the hill and buried at the school, and they had 150 children died. This is London, and it's what they call a P2 fog. It's the 1950s, before they banned people in London from using coal for fires and installed central heating. That kills people in thousands. So you're looking at smog, nitrates, sulfates and particulates, and these things affect your lungs. I've just shown you Cairo, so it's very familiar with you. If you know the film Erden Brockovich, it's about a electricity company which had cooling ponds which leaked and got in. You've seen the film, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the lady is a lawyer who's a hero, and she gets 500 people compensation for being killed or injured. So these are the ways that modern cities can kill you. So what you want is a system that helps you to plan the city. Now a city can be a living organism, and it's got an immune system. David Kilcullen, who's a terrorism expert, describes the American attack on Mogadishu, known as that's shown in the Black Hawk Down film, as being an example of the immune system of the city rejecting the American invasion as a virus. Michael Batty is a well-known expert who's at University College London and is a colleague of Kinder. You can look at a system as a complex adaptive system for the mathematicians among you, because complex means that it has got multiple linkages between multiple layers. Adaptive, it changes its behavior over time. And evolutionary behavior means that not only does it change its behavior gradually, but it also makes big changes at points in time. You can model a city in 5 layers, which is the topography and the subterranean stuff. So you can look at the groundwater, you could look at the hills, you could look at the rocks, you could look at the soil, and model that. That tells you what crops you can grow and what buildings you can build and how much weight it will take. If you've been to Pisa and Italy, not only do you have the tower that leans over like that, because they built it on sand, but next door to it they have a cathedral, and it is the funniest thing ever, because there's not a single wall that's straight up. There's some walls going this way and some walls going that way. It is really worth visiting. You can look at the buildings and the fixed infrastructure. So you can say how high they are, you can look at their energy consumption, you can look at their use for accommodation, and also the ease with which people can move from their accommodation to their work, to their entertainment, to their play. You can look at a city as a series of flows. So you have flows of people going to work, coming home, going shopping. You can have flows of electricity, you can have flows of cars, you can have, then you have on top of that, you have an economic layer, which is about flows of goods and flows of money. You can look at how efficient the city is if you model it. And then you have the socio-political part, which allows you to model the impact of having different groups and tribes, and for instance like Belfast, where the Catholics and the Protestants don't really like each other all that much. So here is my favorite Cairo, mother of the earth, Malala. Yes. As you can see, here's the problem of pollution. More pollution. Here are the causes of it. It's traffic gridlock. The World Bank reckons that Egypt loses 4% of its gross national product due to the traffic gridlock in Cairo. Cairo is it's got the second best traffic jams in the world, I think. The best ones are in Moscow, where one single policeman can put his hand up and the whole city comes to a screeching halt, and you have total traffic gridlock. Cairo, however, you have a traffic jam that moves at 5 miles an hour in a blue haze all through the city on the overpass, and it generates this amount of pollution. The solutions are quite simple. It's electrical cars, it's a traffic management system, it's to do with subsidies for petrol-driven cars, and you can generate a lot of solar electricity. Now, I know that Morocco is very much into the renewable sector. The difficulty with implementing these simple systems is that our assumption that you would put solar panels on the roof of a house doesn't work, because people tend to live and work and sleep on the roofs of their houses in Cairo. So you can't put solar panels up there, and people will steal them anyway. And if you have electric cars, you need to be able to recharge the electric cars. But if Cairo hadn't got enough electrical generating capacity to drive their air conditioning in the summertime, forget about using electric cars, because they can't handle the extra load. On top of that, you also have Egypt's population growth. So not only do they have 70 million people at the moment, but they can expect to have 150 million people by 2050 if they don't do something about it. So they need to, they have a wonderful plan called the Cairo 2050 vision, which doesn't work, but it involves moving 30% of the population out of the centre of the city. Here are the policy options which need to be evaluated. You can set targets for air quality, you can set targets for population growth, you can set targets for traffic flow. But you need to be able to model all these so that you can make informed decision. You need to be able to make an informed decision about introducing electric cars, because at the moment the cars aren't sufficiently robust. The battery technology isn't good enough for mass introduction of electric cars, and you have the problem: where the hell do you put the charging points? Just a simple little problem like that, because you have to point. And then you have the problem of mixing renewable energy with the good old-fashioned centralized generating capacity. So, big data allows you to generate city models, generate building models, and then model smart grids and the use of all these things. And then you can run a modeling exercise which runs for 50 years. So you can see what happens to Cairo by 2065 in an afternoon with a big data setup. So you can have somebody say, well, why don't we do this or that or the other? And you can say, well, the reason you don't do such and such is that the air quality degrades, so Cairo no longer supports human life, or something like that. So these are just standard big data computing techniques, but it comes up with an answer: how many new power stations do you need, and what kind of technology do you need to introduce? Now, those are very big questions which you need to get right. Wrong answer affects your grandchildren big time. An awful lot of problems that we have today are come from mistakes made by our grandfathers. Okay, so there are many mechanisms for visualizing the city. There's the space syntax tools from my friends at UCL. There's the well-known GML3 and the city GML models, which the best known example is the model of Berlin, which is used for city planning. Anybody here use Minecraft? Anybody here you play Minecraft? You build things in blocks? No? Oh, the Swedes in Kristiansand are modeling their city and the buildings using the Minecraft engine. It's cheap, it's cheerful, but it works. Esri have a city engine which allows you to model the city as well. Sorting out the problems of cities. These problems are all over Africa. Lagos built a 5-lane highway round the city, and the day after it opened, it became a car park because it was just one big 5-lane traffic jam. What we can do with Spark is you can do top-down design, you can use space syntax tools for analyzing people flow and efficiencies, you can connect your traffic cameras, your traffic lights and your signs to a Spark system so that you can measure the speed at which your traffic is flowing and where it's flowing to, and you can control or you can change the frequency at which the traffic lights go and the signs which tell people where to go. You can monitor the quality of the air with simple sensors, which talk back to a central processing system using the Spark screening engine. And you can do the same for water quality monitoring. And there was a young lady yesterday who won a prize for her metering application. So this is, it's all coming together, all the small initiatives in Morocco meeting the big initiatives that we're bringing in with big data. And this is what makes Morocco such a fascinating land to visit. I had known it's so exciting and interesting and so much potential before I came here in February. I'm really envious. And then we have lots and lots of people looking at the problems of electricity generation and consumption and smart metering and smart grid, and you can shift demand peaks here, there and everywhere by talking to the peripherals. Space syntax, this is just the output of a paper studying complexity and digitalization of cities, but basically says this is how we can think about making cities useful for people. You don't want to design cities that are like the souk or the Kasbah, because that's not how people these days want to live. Here is one of the outputs of the space syntax people in London. This is the master plan for the city of Darwin in Australia. It's shown up in different colours because there are different effects going on. It's about accommodation, it's about air quality, it's about how much shade and shadow you get from buildings in different parts of the city. There's lots more if you read the space syntax stuff. Building information modeling is something that I don't know if you know anything about in Morocco at the moment. Basically, we are reducing the cost of building buildings by 25% in the UK by the use of automation of design. Known as building information modeling. You can go from simple levels of detail in a building to large levels of detail. This is the roadmap that we are going down. We've just finished level 1 BIM and we're moving up to level 3 BIM, where all the buildings are developed as a computerized model. With every component specified. You can have up to 1 million components in a building, for which you need big data, because if you've got 4 million buildings in the city and you've got 1 million components, suddenly you're dealing with very large volumes of data. What this does is it allows you to manage the electrical efficiency, the water efficiency, the quality of life in the buildings that you design. You can design them for the elderly, the handicapped, and you can decide whether to improve the buildings or tear them down and build something new. It's all available in lots of packages, 3 or 4 packages online. And we can tell you more about that if you want to know. But what they have done is they have integrated the building information modeling with the space syntax stuff so that you start to get a complete living model of the city. This is about Spark in traffic planning. You have a database of all the inhabitants in the town because that comes from the tax people. You know their vehicles because that comes from the driving license people and the vehicle registration people. You know their journeys because you can put cameras, cheap cameras on the streets, and it'll read the number plates of the vehicles going by. And you know their journeys. You know the capacities of the streets, so you can say, well, if we make this street wider, it can accommodate more traffic, and so it'll take 10 minutes off the journey time for everybody. What they found in San Francisco when they introduced systems like that was that they could take 25% off the journey time of everybody in the city. Now that is a lot of time saving, and there's a value for every hour of every person in transit. So, and that was just a simple integration of traffic lights with monitoring systems. So that's an application of Spark which everybody knows. Don't start from scratch to invent it. Everybody else is trying to invent it. Go and find out which one works best and buy it in and adapt it to your needs. If you want to use Spark in the electrical smart grid, you've got a database. You go along to the electricity company, they've got a database of users, they know the premises, they know the loads that are in the building. You can identify from the building information modelling or from a city survey what spaces you have available for solar panels. You know how much wind you can use for wind turbines, and you know the demand patterns. You can then start using machine learning, which is part of Spark, to learn the usage patterns. And you can then identify the usage patterns, understand what the factors driving the usage patterns are, and then you can say, well, this is how you change those usage patterns. If you can take the top 10% of the demand peaks, you save yourself the cost of having to build a power station. So, is this making sense, or is it interesting for you? Yeah? Okay. All about flow management of demand, so that if you have heavy load users who are running their tumble dryers at the same time as everybody is cooking their supper, you can talk to the tumble dryer and say, oi, wait, you can switch on again in an hour's time. Okay? If you don't want to switch off now, and you desperately need to dry all these clothes, you can pay extra for the electricity. Okay? Now that's doable, and you have already got people working on that. Stating the obvious, Morocco has got lots of sun, so you can use that for electrical generation. You also have lots of wind, and this is a wind map. What's really exciting is the advent of what they call grid-scale batteries, which are very big batteries, more than a megawatt hour of battery, which means that you can save up the solar electricity and the wind electricity and reuse it during the night time. Suddenly, you don't need an electricity grid. Spark and battery technology makes this reasonable, makes it happen. And somebody was having lunch with me yesterday and wants to see if we can organise a feasibility study on doing that here in Morocco. Now the cost of solar generation is falling steeply because there are new materials. One of them is called Perscovite coming through, which will reduce the cost of a solar panel by 30%. Suddenly, it's no longer economic to have a big, major macro generation scheme with a big grid in the city. You can have independent villages which are solar powered with a big battery, which no longer need to be connected to the grid. It's easy to install. Graphene also reduces the cost. It increases the efficiency of existing silicon solar panel, and the cost of solar electricity goes below what they call the grid equivalent price, which means that you can replace electricity generation in cities. I talked about microgrids and smart grids. Microgrids are small farm of solar panels with a battery. Now it can be used for city farm. Do you know city farm? City farm is a concept in Massachusetts Institute of Technology where they're saying, well, we have all these buildings, why don't we grow plants in them? If we've got the electrical power, you can provide them with light. You can fool the plants into thinking that the days are actually shorter than they are, or you can give them light for 24 hours a day, driven from a battery. Aeroponics is basically growing plants in a spray. And what that does is it means that instead of having to bring produce in from farms out in the country, you can grow vegetables right next to where people live. Now, we've been talking about data centers. One of the things my PhD is looking at is the possibility of using solar power and wind power and some of these grid-scale batteries to drive a data center for all this big data processing, because data centers consume vast amounts of power, and if we have to put an extra load on the electricity grid in Morocco, they're unattractive. However, if I can run it off solar and wind power, I don't affect the electricity grid. All I need is an optical fiber link to my data center. Suddenly you can have a distributed set of data centers all around the country, in small villages, large villages, towns, universities. So there's all sorts of interesting things happening, all because we know what it's about. Managing water, especially in the arid areas of North Africa and Middle East, is important because you want to get the kind of water efficiency that they get in the Israeli research institutes in the Negev, where they grow plants on next to no water. So you can have a database of users, premises, demand patterns. You can learn who uses the water. You can detect leaks. The problem with water pipes is that they get broken because they get old, or because vehicles go over the top of them, or because the Germans dropped bombs on them 50 years ago, and they break, and you lose vast amounts of water. Big data can actually detect leaks before they happen. And you can do preventive maintenance, which is a whole branch of big data processing and Spark processing, all of its own, that's worth studying. You can manage the flow of water, and we've already talked about preventive maintenance. So these are all the things that you can do in the cities. So you've got, you can plan for the environment that people are going to have in cities. You can plan for delivering power to them. You can plan for delivering water to them. You can plan their journeys. You can plan where to put the employment. And if you can make them happy, then they become successful cities. Unhappy cities are unsuccessful cities. So, following on from the discussion of the water problem, two new things which are happening. One is desalination using graphene. Graphene is it's a new material. I'm on the last slide, so I'll finish right now. Graphene is a new material, very thin carbon layer, but it means that you can do far more efficient desalination, which you can put desalination plants all along the coast and generate water, which will irrigate arable land or provide water for the cities. Of course, all these big desalination plants require nuclear reactors, and there are all sorts of people who get excited about the idea of countries in North Africa having large nuclear reactors because they think they might get bombs out of them. It's the reason it took us nearly 2 minutes to decide that we weren't going to have a nuclear reactor in Ireland, because some idiot would decide might make a good bomb. So the Chinese are studying the use of thorium as a reactor material, and thorium is a very widespread element in the Earth. It has the great advantage you can't make a bomb out of it. And so the Chinese are doing a lot of research into the use of thorium reactors to drive their desalination plants, because while you can get a lot of power out of the thorium reactor, it's not controllable enough to be used in the electrical grid. But anyway, these are the ideas that we're thinking about for redesigning cities so that they are safe for people to live in. So, l'histoire, est-ce qu'il y a des questions? Have I made sense? Have I bored people to death? No? Okay. So, if anybody wants to know more about city design and all the kinds of interesting things that are going on in University College London and with the space syntax people, they would be very happy for an invitation to take part in any future seminars and workshops that there are in Morocco on the subject of city design. You know where to find them. Okay, so